Welcome. I'm Melon Crasto from Mumbai, and I have the privilege to welcome all of you to this panel discussion on genetics. You have just seen two videos on the subject, and it's a very, very interesting subject. So let's get started. A few rules. Everybody will be on mute so that there is no disturbance. Only the panel participants will be allowed to speak. You can have your questions, wrote down your questions. Your questions will be answered at the end of the discussion. Okay. In case you do keep your video on, please see that there's no movement so that there is no disturbance to anybody else. Right. So are we ready? Yeah. So we have with us Mr. Stan Serau, who's the executive director of Velocity My Booster. And we also have with us Dr. Daryl, who is a well-known, renowned doctor who has done tremendous work with COVID patients during this lockdown period. So without wasting more time, let's get started. Right, Stan sir, I'll start with you.
Yes.
What made you come up with this idea of starting this genetic profiling here in India?
Well, this is a question that I've answered a few times, but before that, good evening to everyone and warm welcome. सभी लोगों के लिए हार्दिक स्वागत है इस webinar में. And today we're going to discuss a little about genetics and how it is helping people decode their genetic structure and then do it. So in that context, what Melvin you're asking is, well, I've told you many times, and for the benefit of others, I come from science background, but I was not a biology student, so not much was known to me as far as human anatomy is concerned, the physiology is concerned. तो इसके बारे में मुझे बहुत ज़्यादा knowledge नहीं था, but then I came across this concept, or rather a term called wellness, around 15 years back. तो तभी wellness के बारे में बहुत ज़्यादा awareness, बहुत ज़्यादा popularity नहीं थी. Everybody was like talking about healthcare industry, where health. A very interesting thing about health is आज के डेट में भी इंडिया में अगर if there are people who are obese, मतलब ज्यादा मोटे हैं, बच्चे भी अगर ज्यादा मोटे हैं, जरूरत से ज्यादा, BMI से ज्यादा, people today say that बहुत healthy है, वो healthy था. So in India, मतलब obesity is equated with healthy. So our general perception about health industry is that only I mean, like if you are really well built, maybe that was one concept. And the general understanding is that healthcare industry means, hospitals, doctors, nursing homes, pills and injections and everything. So all this comes into picture after a person has a disease. एक बार बीमारी आने के बाद में ही हम लोग मेडिकल डॉक्टर के पास जाते हैं. पहले तो जाके ऐसे पूछते नहीं कि भाई डॉक्टर साहब आप कैसे हैं, ये पूछने के लिए मैं आ गया. We go to the doctor only when we are not well. So I was also of the same thought, saying that कि बीमारी आ जाएगा तो हम लोग देखेंगे. But then I was introduced to this concept of wellness. And when I really dug myself a little deep into the subject, the concept of wellness, what does wellness mean? Wellness में क्या-क्या aspects हैं. Then also happened to read a couple of books on the wellness industry. You must have definitely read this book of Paul Zane-Pilzer of $1 trillion wellness industry. So I thought, my mind opened up, and then बहुत सारे लोग बीमारी आने के बाद में हजारों में नहीं, लाखों में तो डेफिनेटली है, और कोविड के दौरान हो सकता है कि करोड़ों में भी लोगों ने स्पेंड किया है. We've heard some crazy stories, and I'm sure we have a very, very eminent panelist with us, Dr. Daryl. He will enlighten us with the kind of money people are spending to get back the lost health. So yes, सभी पूरा background जब भी था, I was introduced to this concept of genetics way back in 2010. While I was working as a CEO, I came in contact with a company from the US, which was dealing with Genomics. I was relatively new. My correspondence with them over the email to get their genetic testing into India was not very successful, because they themselves were not too sure whether they'll be successful in USA or not. So that was a little background. And in the year 2016, when we decided to launch a genetics-based wellness company, I felt the kind of knowledge that Indian wellness fraternity shared was quite strong compared to what was available. Information was available in the year 2010. So I definitely felt that the right way of taking care of health is to not only take precautions, which we call preventive health care, but with this technology, we can actually predict two things. One, the root cause of an existing disease. Kyunki today diagnosing a disease has become quite a challenge. People don't really know which doctor to go for a symptom because symptoms are very, very confusing. At the second time, every doctor would probably try to assess the patient with the expertise that they have, and then let the patient go to another stream of doctors, so that people end up spending a lot of not just money, but then end up taking a lot of pills and a lot of medicine which is not relevant. So if there is a way that we can accurately pinpoint as to what is the root cause of a particular health condition which is existing, that's one prediction that we can do. The other prediction that we can do is what is the future diseases that can be caused. तो ये दोनों का अगर हमको prediction अगर मिल सकता है, then I've got a lot of a time to organize my health. I'll speak a little about this later, but just to be very little specific about your question, I want to tell you that I felt this is an absolute need. Genetics के बारे में जानना and अपना खुद का genetic testing करना अभी कोई luxury नहीं रह गया है. It's a need, and in order to propagate that need to people, I thought one small way, as a citizen of India, as a responsible individual, I think I could contribute, and we put together this idea with like-minded people. And of course, I need to also acknowledge Melvin, who's been with us right from the inception of the company. And our mission of spreading taking the knowledge about genetics to ordinary people, common people, and helping them with what nutrigenomics is and what is the benefit of it is something that has been very exciting. So the last 5 years journey has been very fruitful. So that's how we started. And I still feel that we have just begun. And I think the next 5 years are going to be glorious as far as genetics is concerned.
Thank you. Thank you, Stan. Doctor, good evening.
Good evening, Melvin.
And before we begin, Doctor, can you just in brief explain to us about the kind of work that you do?
Yeah. I mean, I'm an MBBS doctor who has had a lot of experience in COVID of late. I've been in wellness for about 8 years, since 2014. And my highlight was and I personally believe and follow it, and I've been following it from 2000, basically, from about 20 years plus, that if you don't look after your body, eventually your body will give up. And it'll fall a prey to whatever's happening. It's like your house, it's like your car, it's like your anything. If you don't maintain it correctly, you will have problems. If you don't anticipate problems, you will have more problems. So to me, when I met you, Melvin, and Albino, and met Stan, Mr. Stan Serrao, it was an eye-opener when I heard about the DNA test. And it became the Google map of life. If you can prevent illness upfront by taking the right steps, you can actually stay healthy, at least for the next, I'm 63, I want to stay healthy for till 90 or 100 even. And I really want to stay healthy. It's not about, I was at one stage, I was 122 kilos. I brought myself down to 68 kilos. I'm back up to, thanks to the lockdown, I'm back up to about 88, 89 kilos. Over time, that'll come down to under my BMI is 85 kilos. So it'll come down to less than that, and efforts are on. But more importantly, the DNA test that Stan was talking about that you guys have has been a tremendous eye-opener to me as to what are the issues I can anticipate. Something as simple as, I thought I would have gluten intolerance when I did the test, it was not. I didn't dream I'd have lactose intolerance. I knew my wife had lactose intolerance. I never dreamt I would have it. And I used to enjoy a glass of milk, a hot glass of milk with turmeric in the night and go to sleep. That was my sleeping tablet. Okay, that is a wonderful sleeping tablet. The issue I had is, now I know with the DNA test that milk is an issue. now I know that, and I've been, since I did my test, I've been doing without milk for what, about a month and a half now. And simple things like not having milk in your tea, not having milk in your coffee. And I love coffee. Fortunately, I'm not caffeine, intolerant. So I can enjoy my caffeine and I can enjoy my cup of tea. But now without the milk in the thing, that swelling, that bloating, that gas, all has gone. I spent the last 3 days, 2 days in Warsaw with my in-laws. And of course, I had to, you can't be a single guy saying, I don't want to have, I want only black tea and black coffee. And you take what they give because they have a crowd of people coming in and going out, coming in and going out all the time. So trying to be one of the crowd, I drank what they gave me. And my God, at night, it was painful to sleep because, your stomach gets bloated, a lot of things with a lactose intolerance. So to me and to my patients, when I talk to them about wellness is, hey, if you can put your Google map in life, if you can get that documented, because your DNA is not going to change. If you can put that in a file, if you can understand where you stand based on your DNA, and DNA comes from both mom and dad, so if you can do that, then you have your Google map of life. You know what to have, what not to have, what to avoid, and what to really run away from. So that stuff you can enjoy, stuff you need not worry. I mean, I always knew my cholesterol would be high, my triglycerides. I'm very, very sensitive to food habits, and I've had high triglycerides since 1990, 30 years ago, when I first tested my blood. And I've ended up taking the phenofibrates. I've taken phenofibrates for almost 20 odd years, 25 years. I've taken statins for about 20, 25 years. I nicely brought myself down to no need for statins, no need for phenofibrates. And the test revealed that, hey, why don't you just go on to statins and go on back to your phenofibrates? You don't want to build up any kind of thing. So for me personally, this adds into my vision and my goal and my objectives to keeping people healthy. You have to keep yourself healthy. Usually when I talk to companies, I normally work with companies, with corporates. And when I talk to corporates, it's about what's your vision for healthcare? And my vision for healthcare is very clear. I want all employees in the best of health, because if you're not at the best of health, if you have hypertension, you have diabetes, you're worth 50% of your productivity. You're not worth the money the company is paying you. So that's the approach I take, and that's the approach I've been successful with. And I try and reverse people on diabetes and hypertension and all. But now with the DNA test, it makes life so much easier. The patient now knows, the individual knows what he's at risk. He knows what traffic jams are going to be on the way in the Google Map of Life. To me, this is the Google Map of Life. I also use one more mantra, which I talk about. If you think staying healthy is expensive, try getting sick. One day in an ICU could be between 20,000 and 50,000. We've seen that in COVID, and Stan talked about it. It's been a mind-boggling, eye-opening number where it's lakhs, 3 lakhs to 38 lakhs, 40 lakhs I've seen patients spend. And you can't stop that. You can't stop that charging that the hospital do, the stuff you have to go through because somebody's life is at stake. But I tell people, even in COVID, I try and do early treatment rather than waiting for them to collapse and then putting them in the hospital. And if I can reverse them even when they're collapsing, would be great. So everything I do has been focused on wellness. Staying healthy is the primary importance in life. Okay, Melvin?
Yes, doctor. I think prevention is better than cure is something we have heard from childhood, but now's the time to actually put it into practice.
Yep.
Yeah. Stan sir, you said that you have in the 5th year of operation. So how has it been the last 4.5 odd years? And since it's a relatively new thing when you started it, has there been any resistance from people?
Yes, Melvin, I would say that, initially it took us around 6 months to sensitize people that you can actually do a saliva sample, you can do a DNA test through a saliva sample, because people thought that we are all used to do a lot of tests, which are based on blood. जब तक सुई अंदर नहीं जाता है हमको ऐसा लगता है कि वो पैसा नहीं वसूल हो जाएगा, because we take blood and then we feel okay, now this is authentic. because now you will have a lot of different tests done. Now the problem with such diagnosis is that that kind of blood-based test is that it tells you as to what is your state of health at that particular moment. It doesn't really predict you. It will not really tell you whether you have the risk factor to be obese or to have develop the tendency of being a diabetic patient. It doesn't really tell you from a genetic perspective. So when we try to explain the science to the people. People felt that probably it's a technology that we are not too sure whether we should trust or no. Saliva based, people have never really thought that कि एक आप लार या तूक देने से आपका जेनेटिक लेवल का टेस्टिंग होगा, आपका पूरा भविष्य हेल्थ का भविष्य कुंडली बता सकते हैं. People didn't really believe it, though everybody felt it's a very exciting science. People also felt that it was expensive. Now, just to relate with what Dr. Daryl said, 38,000, 38 lakhs, 40 lakhs. We know people who have spent, the other day we heard a story of a person, I think in the workshop, Mr. Terry Valentine talked about a person who has spent more than 1 crore by doing a charter plane and, getting a medical ambulance in the air ambulance and all those stuff. The rich people can afford to do that because life is beyond crores of rupees that people have earned. So ye sab hua. So people have this mindset saying this is expensive. Now, as Dr. Daryl said, if you think this is expensive, try illness. Illness करेंगे तो ICU bed अगर दिन का 20-30,000 rupees से अगर मिल रहा है, it definitely is more expensive. So the lack of awareness, one, lack of proper knowledge, and the other thing which still continues is ignorance. Ignorance is bliss. हमको अच्छा लगता है कि भाई ठीक है, let's close our eyes and then assume that everything is okay. Only, of course, this is true only till the time then there is some serious sickness hurts us, and then we'll beg, borrow, steal, and somehow would like to find the best medical doctor and then get a treatment where we may have damaged our various parts of the body, organs, or the entire system to a great extent that it is difficult to reverse. And we are willing to spend a lot of money. So our initial resistance was in terms of understanding the technology, because today people believe that the belief about alternative therapies also was not so strong. But I think thanks to the government, the Ayush department, a lot of education on yoga and so many other alternative therapies, and especially the jatka that COVID-19 has given us. People have now believed that naturotherapy, naturopathy, things that are natural are definitely also contributing factor along with the modern medicine, which is driven by a lot of research, science, and technology. So we believe that integrated approach, which is ancient wisdom and the modern technology, when you put together, I think genetics is an exciting technology that bridges the gap between both. And I think 15 days back I attended a webinar conducted by the one of the departments of the government of India, the health ministry, which is looking into genetics. They are doing a lot of research on Genomics, how the concepts of Ayurveda are helping substantiate the dogma or the principles of genetics. मतलब ये हुआ कि जैसे आयुर्वेद में वात, पित्त और कफा ऐसे अलग अलग प्रकृति या कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ बॉडी है, उसको पता करते हैं और वो हिसाब से आपको अलग अलग हर्ब्स देते हैं, अलग अलग फूड हैबिट्स को चेंज करने के लिए बताते हैं, जिसको हम लोग कभी परहेज या ऐसा टर्म से जानते हैं. तो ये दोनों का कॉम्बिनेशन से ये पता कर सकते हैं. And even genetics also is helping us understand what are we intolerant to, what are we resistant to, what are the risk factors from a genetic perspective. तो ये सभी साइंस को साथ में करेंगे तो it's a brilliant science. And we need to really look at there are two types of interventions that we can do when there is a medical condition or there is a health challenge. One, of course, is a clinical intervention in terms of taking medicines or having surgeries, and that's one area. The other one is the dietary interventions. कई बार हम लोगों ने देखा है कि लोग बोलते हैं कि भाई इनका हवा पानी चेंज कर दो, इनका food habits change कर दो. A lot of restrictions are there in terms of food, and we have this, in Indian tradition, we also have this culture of fasting every now and then. I'm sure there is a scientific evidence to everything, which the wise people or our ancestors have thought about. So वो बोल सकते हैं ना कि ये बहुत सारे scientific facts हैं, वो religion में या संस्कृति में लपेट के लोगों को इस तरीके से बताते हैं कि you balance your health and take care of your health. So I feel initially we did have a resistance, but I think I would say in India the golden period for genetic related wellness solutions is right now. And the next 3 to 5 years is there's going to be a great awareness. So I felt that that resistance was worth it. We are quite happy and excited about the kind of work that we are doing, and it's been a golden time that we have spent in the last 4 years, 5 years, putting a foundation. And I'm sure all the people who are associated with us in Velocity Genetics can benefit from it either as a customer and understand their own genetic structure and have more scientific knowledge of their own. And of course, as a wellness entrepreneur, you can also establish yourself as a genomic wellness consultant or as a counselor, as a wellness entrepreneur, and reach out to people. So I think it's the right time. 2021 to 2025, next 4 years, watch out. Genomics or genetics is going to be big.
That's wonderful. Doctor, as a general physician, what has been your observation about how people, in regards to how people handle their health?
If you really want an answer, people don't care. Most people don't care. They eat and drink like there's no tomorrow. And that's one of the issues most general practitioners have, is that they're so busy treating the disease that they're not looking at wellness and advising people how to be well. A patient won't come to me, normally would never come to me with a blood pressure problem till his blood pressure goes up, till he or she starts getting headaches, or they get giddiness, or the sugar problem, a diabetes problem. They'll come only when they're really bad. And we're trying to educate them that you have to come early, really early. With hypertension, I take people off their drugs. I make them go onto a zero salt food for 8 weeks. Make them track their blood pressure every day, twice a day. Within a week or 10 days, their blood pressure has settled down. And by the time they get to 8 weeks, which is 2 full months, they've been at a baseline where you start reintroducing salt, and now the salt tastes, too much of salt. So things like your sambar or your curries you have are full of salt, especially the thing. So you can actually take people off off their drugs on these two diseases, diabetes and hypertension. By just following dietary habits, by following certain discipline in life. No eating. I tell people, don't eat that chili, jo mirchi jo milta hai na, with a lot of salt in it. That's loaded with salt. No, sir, work stress. I get the common thing. ये work stress का problem है, काम का problem है. नहीं sir, ये आपके खाने का problem है. ये जो है तो आपका irresponsible खाने का problem है. This is nothing to do with work stress. And since I work with corporates, I can be brutally hard on them and take care of them in a way that they get better and they can go off their drugs. I'll give you an example. I was surprised to see that I'm metformin resistant. How many times in the last few years I put people on metformin expecting them to improve, and nothing happened. It takes 6 months to a year before a doctor will even decide to change from that drug. You'll try everything else, but you keep the metformin. Finally, I say, okay, drop the metformin. Let's see something else. By then, he's already progressed to his diabetes already progressed. So these are little things that you can benefit as a family practitioner, as a general practitioner. It benefits me because it benefits my patients if they get better. Okay. Vitamin D, my favorite topic. On every lecture, every webinar, every time I do an interview, I talk about vitamin D. The best prophylaxis for COVID, for getting asymptomatic COVID, is vitamin D. My personal vitamin D is in the 90s. It goes between 90 and 99. And I make sure I take my vitamin D shots or take my tablets, whichever one I'm on, absolutely faithfully the right way, because that is the only thing that can limit you from getting COVID a bad way. I've had COVID, asymptomatic COVID, and I tell people, I'll take a bet if you check your blood pressure, your blood level of vitamin D, it'll be below 10 or below 20. And that's exactly what it turns out to be. So I can give you example after example, Melvin, but it makes, this is something I go back. What Stan was talking about, introducing a new technology, introducing a new procedure. I've introduced angioplasty in 89. I've introduced stenting in 1995, 96. Okay. Angioplasty, I had senior doctors tell me, I'll never send a patient for angioplasty. I'll send them directly for surgery. 4 years later, that same doctor has stood in front of the convention center, Washington, D.C., pleading with me to be taught angioplasty. He was losing his patients. So Stan, you're right. It'll come. It took me, the first year, I did 300 cases in angioplasty in the country. We built it up brick by brick, 1,000 by 1,000, 5,000. Today, India does what? 15 lakh cases of angioplasty. For me, when I left India in 97 to go to Singapore, we were doing 8,000 or 10,000 cases. Today, we're talking about 15 lakh cases. Look at the growth India has had. Why? Because it's become common knowledge, it's become awareness has happened, and you have doctors willing to do the procedure, willing to treat the procedure. You don't have, so that'll come about. It's a matter of time. Okay, Melvin?
Yeah. Stan, sir, what are the tests that you do, and how many parameters do you cover?
Well, in the, when we started, we were doing as low as 33, phenotypes is what we call. Phenotypes and traits could be sometimes confused. Just to distinguish कि traits का मतलब क्या होता है and what is a phenotype. एक phenotype है जो gluten intolerance है या नहीं है इसको देखता है. आप ग्लूटन एक प्रोटीन है जो गेहूं में, राई में, बार्ली में रहता है, एंड इसको अभी हम जो भी स्टेपल फूड खाते हैं इंडिया में, आप देखोगे या तो लोग राइस खाते हैं या तो रोटी खाते हैं या गेहूं खाते हैं, और गेहूं से बनाई हुई और राइस से बनाई हुई बहुत सारी चीजें हैं, लेकिन गेहूं से बनाई हुई चीजें बहुत ज्यादा हैं. रोटी, ऑल बेकरी आइटम्स, बिस्किट्स, पानी पूरी से लेके बहुत सारी चीजें हम लोग खाते हैं. तो अगर मैंने मेरा जेनेटिक टेस्टिंग कर लिया एंड मुझे ग्लूटेन इंटॉलरेंस का जेनेटिक लेवल पे हाई रिस्क है करके उसका नतीजा आ गया, तो उसके नतीजे क्या क्या हो सकते हैं या उसके सिम्टम्स, इंडिकेशंस क्या हो सकते हैं, अगर उसकी मैं लिस्ट करूं, वो बहुत सारी चीजें हो सकती है. हो सकता है कि आई माइट हैव इंसोम्निया, मतलब नींद ना आने की बीमारी, या एसिडिटी, गैस्ट्रिक इश्यूज, ब्लोटिंग हो सकता है, मुझे इन्फ्लेमेशन आ सकता है. तो ऐसी बहुत सारी चीजें हमारे रिपोर्ट में वी आर लिस्टिंग अराउंड 70-80 डिफरेंट ट्रेट्स या उसके इंडिकेशंस. सो अभी मैं एक ही जीन का टेस्ट करके मैं 60-70 ट्रेट्स का भी एक रिपोर्ट बना सकता हूँ. दैट्स वन वे. द इंडस्ट्री इज नाउ ग्रोइंग, सो वी नीड टू रियली अंडरस्टैंड दिस. बट व्हाट वी आर डूइंग इज वी आर लुकिंग एट 210 phenotypes. तो उसके अगर सिम्टम्स देखेंगे तो आई थिंक देयर आर 500-600 डिफरेंट सिम्टम्स दैट वी कैन हैव. सो वी हैव अराउंड 18 कैटेगरीज दैट स्टार्ट्स विद न्यूट्रिशनल डेफिशिएंसी. जैसे डॉक्टर डैरिल ने बता दिया, उनके पास बहुत सारे ऐसे पेशेंट आते हैं, वो ऐसा जीते हैं और ऐसा खाते हैं पीते हैं कि जैसे कोई कल है ही नहीं है. आज लास्ट दिन है तो बोला मौज मस्ती करो, तो आज के दिन ही खाओ. एंड वो जब आते हैं डॉक्टर के पास, जब उनका स्थिति काफी आउट ऑफ कंट्रोल हो गई है या काफी डैमेज हुई है, मतलब उनसे अभी बर्दाश्त नहीं हो रहा है, तब जाके डॉक्टर को बोलते हैं कि चलो ठीक है, आप कुछ भी करो, मुझे बचा दो, या मुझे ये पेन कम कर दो, या जो भी करो. सो इट हैज गॉन टू एडवांस स्टेज. सो वी नीड टू रियली लुक टेक केयर इन टर्म्स ऑफ आवर डाइटरी इंटरवेंशंस कि मुझे मेरे शरीर के लिए, अगर मेरी डीजल की गाड़ी है तो मैं पेट्रोल नहीं डाल सकता हूँ या और कोई दूसरा ऑयल नहीं डाल सकता हूँ, फ्यूल नहीं डाल सकता हूँ. वैसे ही मेरी बॉडी टाइप क्या है मुझे पता करना है. अब तक हम लोगों ने इसके ऊपर ध्यान नहीं दिया. हम लोग जब भी डॉक्टर के पास भागते हैं तभी हमको बीमारी आती है. Then पता कर, then we try to understand. I'm sitting in the office, Velocity Genetics office, and today I was speaking to somebody, and then I Melvin, our good friend, Mr. late Tulsidas Shetty. Yes. He's a guy who actually was a medical representative for almost 30 years, literally knows every major doctor in Mumbai, and he's been a very fantastic religious, spiritual guy. He's been a member of ISKCON. and he's been doing a great work. And one fine day he says that I went to a doctor not as a medical rep but as a patient because he developed certain pain. And when there was some sonography and other things happened with the expression of doctor, उन्होंने काफी जोवियल आदमी थे, तो उसने पूछा कि भाई सब ठीक ठाक तो है ना, कि मेरा हार्ट ठीक है ना, क्योंकि मेरी वाइफ बोलती है कि आई एम अ हार्टलेस पर्सन, तो हार्ट ठीक है ना, तो उन्होंने बोल दिया कि नहीं हार्ट ठीक है लेकिन यू गॉट ओनली वन किडनी, you don't have two kidneys. Now the person comes to know that he has one kidney only at the age of around 50 and only when he had a problem. And unfortunately, after some multiple organ failure, illness, we lost him. Okay, so now that's a classical example how ignorant people are. हमको I usually ask in the seminars कि आपके पास दांत कितने हैं, तो लोग बोलते हैं वो मतलब गर्व से एक बार 32 है, तो बाद में थोड़ा डाउट हो जाता है, काउंट करने लगते हैं तो 32 होते नहीं है. In as per our physiology, probably we need to have 32, or sometimes people even might have more, but then people start counting. तो लोगों के मुंह के अंदर दांत कितने कब पता चल जाता है, जब एक एक निकलने लगता है, तो बोलते हैं हाँ अभी 20 बचे, 28 मतलब 18 बचे, 16 बचे, 15 बचे. तो अगर टच एंड फील करके जो हम लोग अपने बॉडी पार्ट्स को अगर काउंट कर सकते हैं, मतलब वो हम लोग देख सकते हैं, लेकिन बॉडी के अंदर जो जितना भी सामान फिट किया हुआ है, जिसने भी हमको बनाया है, उसके बारे में हमको नॉलेज नहीं है. वी कम टू नो अबाउट इट only when we have some disease, and unfortunately if there is a major serious disease that may cause a lot of expenses, expensive, and it's very painful and all that, it's a little difficult situation. So we are now trying to educate people on various parts of our body and various things that our body requires. The first category is nutritional deficiency. We also talk about various lifestyle diseases like diabetes, cardiac condition, chronic kidney, diseases. And we also talking about the fitness part of it. You cannot be fit only by eating food, but you also need to be physically maintaining yourself by having an exercise regimen. So walking करना हो, jogging करना हो, या जिम में जाके अपने मसल्स या बॉडी टोनिंग करना हो, तो क्या करना है लोगों को पता नहीं है. We usually go by कि भाई आपका दोस्त क्या कर रहा है, पड़ोसन क्या कर रहा है, या कौन we look at probably the hero worship हम लोग करते हैं, तो बॉलीवुड के स्टार्स क्या करते हैं उनको हम लोग इमिटेट करते हैं. What we fail to understand is their body is different and our body is different. So what they do and what they eat is something we cannot blindly do unless and until we do a scientific analysis. So we are covering around 210 different phenotypes. उसमें आपका क्या जेनेटिक कोड है ये हम लोग बताते हैं, और वो कोड के हिसाब से आपका रिस्क फैक्टर क्या है, whether it's a high risk, it's a moderate risk, or is it a low risk is what we say. So if it is a low risk, you have reasons to be happy, and but at the same time you need to also take precautions, because आपकी लो रिस्क है इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि यू आर लाइसेंस टू डू एनीथिंग एंड एवरीथिंग दैट यू विश टू डू. यू स्टिल नीड टू मेंटेन डिकोरम, एंड आपको थोड़ा डिसिप्लिन होना, प्रैक्टिस करना जरूरी है. बट एट द सेम टाइम इफ यू आर मॉडरेट रिस्क एंड हाई रिस्क, इट्स अ टाइम फॉर यू टू वॉच आउट कि हाँ यहाँ पे मेरे रिस्क फैक्टर हो सकते हैं. एंड yesterday we had this workshop in Mumbai, and we had a genetic expert and a scientist, Dr. Amol Raut, explaining to us by saying that आपके अगर रिस्क फैक्टर हाई है, स्मॉल इनसाइट्स जैसे डॉक्टर साहब ने अभी बता दिया, डॉक्टर डैरिल ने, कि मेटफॉर्मिन वो कई सारे लोगों को रेकमेंड करते थे, प्रिस्क्राइब करते थे, and people have been consuming it, but now he understands that metformin may not be really of use, and 6 महीने के खाने के बाद में अगर आपको ये पता करना है तो 6 महीने मेटफॉर्मिन के ऊपर जो पैसे खर्च किए और ये जो एक्सपेक्ट किया रिजल्ट्स, वो इट वाज यूजलेस, बिकॉज आपका बॉडी उसको रेस्पॉन्ड नहीं कर रहा है. सो वी आर नाउ मूविंग नॉट ओनली फ्रॉम जेनेटिक्स, न्यूट्रिजेनोमिक्स, वी आर ऑल्सो मूविंग टू फार्माकोजेनोमिक्स. तो उसका भी एक झलक हम लोगों ने हमारे रिपोर्ट में दिया है. वी आर लुकिंग एट वेरियस ब्लड थिनर्स लाइक स्टैटिन्स, वारफरिन्स एंड मेटफॉर्मिन, ऐसे बहुत सारे क्लास ऑफ मेडिसिन भी आपके डिसीज अगर आएंगे तो क्या उसको आपको उसकी एफिकेसी है, या क्या आपके वो बॉडी में काम करते हैं या नहीं करते हैं, इसके बारे में हम लोग पता करते हैं. तो यू हैव अराउंड 210 phenotypes. The report is as big as around 245, 250 pages. We are used to 1 page, 2 page report. जो ब्लड रिपोर्ट आता है, एक्सरे, एमआरआई का रिपोर्ट आता है, तो 1 or 2 pages आता है. But here, since it's your a comprehensive genetic testing that covers a lot of aspects, whether you're well or you're not doing well, or you're reasonably doing well, everything like a mirror that you can understand. And with this insights, these are not Genetic testing is a not solution by itself, but it will give you indicators, but it will give you guidelines, it will give you direction कि क्या करना चाहिए, क्या नहीं करना चाहिए, क्या ज़्यादा करना चाहिए, all that insight. So this is an exciting report. So we're doing a very, very comprehensive test, which is, a lot of clients after the counseling say that it's like an eye opener. We never thought, these things exist. And dietary interventions today are becoming more and more prominent because more and more people are going back to the nature, naturopathy towards ja rahe hain. I would root for a combination of everything. You cannot say that, I'm only doing yoga when you have fallen and then, broken your, bone. So you have to actually also take care of the modern medicine and surgeries and the technologies. They're brilliant, but they come handy when you are into an emergency. Emergency के situation में ना जाने के लिए, I think this knowledge helps. So, the Velocity Genetics DNA testing program is comprehensive with 210 phenotypes with the report that will be explained to you in a layman language with the genetic counseling by our experts, nutritionists and genetic counselors who understand as to how to decode आपका report को एक आम भाषा में आपको हम लोग किस तरीके से समझा सकते हैं जो आपको जरूरी है वो हम लोग समझाते हैं 1 घंटे, सवा घंटे, 1.5 घंटे में कभी-कभी. And we then give you solutions that you can do on a simple, smart changes on a lifestyle changes basis on a day-to-day basis.
Dr. Darrell, you have been recommending a lot of your patients for doing this genetic program. So how are people responding to it?
Most often they welcome it. They're willing to do it. Sometimes price becomes an issue, but most often they're willing to do it because when I explain to them why they need it, it's about putting the need, explain to them the need. Why do you need to do it? Because if I use the example, this is a Google map of life. If I'm going to Ahmedabad or going to Pune from here, I can go on different ways. But if there's traffic on one way, at least I know in advance and I can circle and go around about it and do something different rather than going and getting stuck in the traffic. Okay, unless you have no choice. If you're stuck in traffic on the Ghats, you're stuck when on the way to Pune. But if I'm leaving home and I know that Ghodbunder Road Thana is blocked, I'll go around the Eastern Express Highway. So I can moderate myself if I use my Google map. This is the Google map of life. The DNA test gives you a real perspective on what is your DNA. That's not going to change. Okay, it's not going to ever change. Your DNA has come from your mom and dad, from your mother and father. आपके माता पिता से आपको DNA मिला है. Okay, so the issue is now, what can you do with that information? How can you live correctly to be healthy? I just got a message while Stan sir was talking from a classmate of mine who said, talk about eat less food. In India, we tend to overeat. We eat a lot. And we need to really start spacing out our food and quantity of food. That whole story of saying, eat a very big breakfast, Maharaja ka jaise breakfast khaiye, Raja ka jaise lunch khaiye, or Bikari ka jaise dinner khaiye. That was created by the US companies that made cereals, that made all the cornflakes. Okay. Those companies had to sell cornflakes to somebody, so they created this whole marketing which talked about it. Today, somebody like me, I can go without breakfast. I eat straight away lunch at 12 or 1 o'clock. I eat dinner at 7. I actually had my dinner before I came on the call because I don't need to eat. 2 meals and a snack in between is more than enough. I know people call it intermittent fasting, but you need to make sure you're eating less food. And this classmate of mine was not joking when he talked about eat less food. We in India tend to eat a lot more food. We tend to overeat. We need to, like Stancer said earlier, because healthy doesn't mean you're obese. Okay, you cannot be obese and be called healthy. You're over healthy. I tell people she's over healthy. She needs to cut down on that healthiness. We need to really get her on the level playing field of healthiness. So I talk very simple language, Melvin. I'm with my patients, I'm very, very down to earth. I try and talk to their language, what works for them, how best they can understand. I don't use medical language. I use very simple words, whether it is COVID, whether it's diabetes, whether it's hypertension, and the main thing, you get results. So if somebody has hypertension and I can reverse their hypertension in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and show them that it's the salt in their food that affects their hypertension and makes them hypertensive, and they don't need to take drugs, that they only can remove the salt. Many times just from the rice, many times less salt in the dal or less salt in the bhaji will make a big change to somebody's hypertensive status. Same thing with diabetes. If you know what to eat and what not to eat, you can actually reduce your diabetes pretty heavily. You can get off drugs. What I've never succeeded is taking somebody from insulin down to drugs and then down to nothing. I've taken a lot of people from drugs to nothing and from insulin to drugs, which again, you have to accept what you can do. I have another mantra here. Perfection is the enemy of good. I'd rather have a good result than have a bad result, a perfect result. Perfect result, you have to go to a lot more ways. So I can keep talking like this, madam. Melvin, back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I agree with both of you that, I mean, health for many people is not a priority. People tend to live life, and we have this tendency of, waiting for something to happen and then expecting the doctor to do everything. So, but Stancer, recently we have seen there was a television actor, Siddharth Shukla. I mean, he apparently was very healthy. He was go to the gym regularly, but he died at age 40. And there are quite a few others who have a cardiac problem at an early age. What do you think? What are your comments on that?
Well, that's something that I wanted to speak about, and thank you that you reminded me and mentioned to me. Now, see, firstly, अगर हम लोग कोई ऐसे high profile, whether it's a politician, industrialist, or Bollywood actors, known figure के बारे में बात करते हैं, कई सारे लोग बोलते हैं हाँ इनका नाम यूज करके ये मार्केटिंग करते हैं, मतलब अपना प्रोडक्ट बेचने के लिए इनका ट्रेजेडी का सहारा लेते हैं. That's something that you need to keep aside. But if you really look at from a objective, अभी इसके बारे में उसका पोस्टमार्टम रिपोर्ट क्या है या उसका क्या रीजंस है, देयर कुड बी अ लॉट ऑफ स्टोरीज. आई थिंक काफी उनके फैमिलीज के लिए. आई बीन वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट फैन ऑफ सिद्धार्थ शुक्ला. आई पर्सनली लाइक्ड हिम अ लॉट फॉर हिज फिटनेस, for the way he carried himself. मुझे काफी पसंद है. I've been actually Big Boss 13. I've been I could follow it. I think maybe because of lockdown or whatever. But with whatever information that we have, जितना भी हमको अभी तक public domain में पता है, there are only two things that people concluded. One, of course, is genetics. The other one is lifestyle. You just Google and then see. They said the cause for his death is only two. And unfortunately, he lost his father also for a cardiac arrest. And it is said that he also mentioned once that, probably I will also have cardiac arrest because, I have this. And it's just in an interview. And secondly, of course, is a lifestyle. So this is something that's known in the public domain. Apart from that, there are so many others. Now, if you really know people in and around your circle of influence, and उनकी डेथ अगर हुई है अनफॉर्चुनेटली, एंड अगर आप पूछोगे कि क्या रीजन हो सकता है, आई वुड एट्रीब्यूट इट टू organ failures. First, either it's something to do with brain, it's a brain hemorrhage or some neurological problem. Second is, of course, heart, and number one killer across the world, and India is not an exception. And I think it's a very good point your friend brought out, Dr. Daryl, is that India में diets के बारे में थोड़ा awareness है, लेकिन वो पोर्शन जो हम लोग बोलते हैं कि जो क्वांटिटी जो है इसके ऊपर काफी अभी अवेयरनेस नहीं है. आई कीप ट्रैवलिंग फॉर कंडक्टिंग सेमिनार्स, एंड व्हेन आई गो डाउन साउथ, व्हेन वी ऑर्डर अ बिरयानी और समथिंग, वन बिरयानी इन मुंबई, the portion is quite less. Maybe people eating here a little different quantity. पर देन वहां पे एक ऐसा बिरयानी मंगाते हैं तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि या तो मैं 7 दिन खा सकता हूँ या तो 3 लोग साथ में खा सकते हैं. I cannot finish honestly. And same with the once I ordered a vada sambar, and that vada was more like a it's like a tire जैसा बड़ा था. I mean one vada is like a good breakfast, but यहाँ पे मुंबई में वो ear ring type मिलते हैं vadas, too small. So every region culture have their own measurement, and people are definitely overall eating a lot. So the one part is that. Second, of course, is that the right exercise, right physical fitness, and lockdown में ये challenge रहा है. but लोगों ने इसका भी तोड़ निकाला है, whether it's pranayam, whether it's some kind of a Zumba at home. Yeah, abhi, of course, people can definitely walk out. The parks are open, and I see a lot of people wanting to lose weight because lockdown के दौरान बहुत सारे लोगों ने weight gain किया हुआ है. So people are trying to do that. So I felt that high profile जब लोगों की मौत होती है, of course वो दुख लगता है, but it's very unfortunate and quite shocking that people don't try to dig deep and find out कि उसका reason क्या है, क्या ऐसा हुआ जिसकी वजह से उनकी मृत्यु हो गई. I also speak to a few friends, I said like I'm shocked कि क्यों हो गया ऐसा. Then सामने से ऐसे जवाब आता है, cardiac arrest, normal है. मतलब we have now understood that all these reasons are normal causes of death, not age related or like अपना lifespan खत्म हो गया. I mean, people, if somebody is having is dying out of kidney failure, we feel these are very normal reasons to have. I think we need to have a little introspection and then see if we can really dig deep and then find out as to what is causing all these damages. Genetic of course is one factor, but it's not only the genetics, it's also the lifestyle. तो हमारे lifestyle में वो stress भी आ जाता है, vitamin D deficiency जो Dr. Darrell बहुत ज़्यादा stress करते हैं, because we don't go into the sun, and of course if it's a rainy season you don't see a sun. I've got friends in Europe who says that we've got a lot of issues in terms of what do you call it, uric acid, this and that. It's because gout का problems होते हैं because vitamin D मिलता नहीं है, so they're taking a lot of supplements. तो यहाँ पे ना supplements भी लेते हैं, ना sunshine vitamin बनता है body में because we don't get exposure to the sun. तो ऐसे बहुत सारी चीजें हैं. तो vitamin D3, sleep patterns, people are sleeping too late, and even not just the food, right food, but the timing of the eating the right food. हम लोगों ने कल सेमिनार में ये भी देखा कि अगर एक्सरसाइज भी करना है, you can now find out whether depending on your genetic code and your genetic structure, what is the time of your exercise. मतलब सुबह आपको एक्सरसाइज करने से ज्यादा बेनिफिट होता है या शाम को ज्यादा बेनिफिट होता है, that also could be identified. So all these factors are there. So जब हाई प्रोफाइल पर्सनालिटी के डेथ होने से कई बार हम लोग ऐसा ध्यान देते हैं इसके ऊपर, but otherwise there are millions of other ordinary people who are dying. People don't even care about कि भाई क्या उसका reason है. So it's a very unfortunate thing that we have to sort of come across in the media and non-medical sources जहाँ से हम लोगों को ये पता चल जाता है. And there are very, very less doctors in India at this point in time, like Dr. Darrell, who are qualified allopathic MBBS doctors treating patients day in and day out, who also understand the importance of a genetic aspect, and लोगों को ऐसा integrated advice करते हैं, क्योंकि उनका भी treatment बहुत ज़्यादा line of treatment बहुत ज़्यादा sharp and accurate हो जाता है, precision medicine जिसको हम लोग बोल सकते हैं. But I think the whole medical fraternity is still not really open to this, because sometimes it might look little like a threat कि यार लोग healthy रहेंगे, जल्दी जल्दी ठीक हो जाएंगे तो अपना धंधा कैसा चलेगा. So that also could be one of the thoughts. But I think now that people are opening up, I think we need to really appreciate Dr. Darrell for being a very liberal doctor who puts the patient care or the relief to a patient, or the curing a condition first than his commercials. And I think he has a reputation of treating so many patients during COVID. And I've heard that he's been also interviewed by the AIMS at Delhi for the wonderful work that he's doing. So Dr. Darrell, really thank you from Velocity Genetics for the wonderful work that you're doing. And I think we would like to have more and more doctors opening up and then educating people, so that India truly becomes a superpower nation, because we've got a huge manpower, but today people are still suffering from like 8 crores people with diabetics. 8 more crore people are ready to be diabetic because they're pre-diabetic right now. So many hypertensions. You see more and more lifestyle diseases are emerging. 70% of rural India is malnutrition, but 70% of urban India is overweight and they're obese, and they're dealing with they're overnutrition. Maybe they're eating too much of a calorie and consuming too much of a food which is their body does not require. So I would also encourage all our participants to acknowledge Dr. Darrell through a chat and acknowledging his efforts. So we really need these kind of doctors who understand the relevance of a complementary technology, not just it as just a standalone product, but it helps them in their practice so that they'll become more result oriented and solution oriented doctors.
Thank you, Stan. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
Congratulations, Doctor.
Thank you.
Yeah, Doctor, you spoke about it a little bit in the beginning, but I just wanted to elaborate on it. You are doing some work with big corporates. So, what is the kind of approach you want them to for their employees?
Okay, here's what my normal thing is. I get asked a question, what's the vision for healthcare at XYZ corporate? And my answer is, I break it up into 50 and above. So above 50, if you have disease, I want you preferably off the disease or to the lowest amount of disease and in best of health so you can live the next 30, 40, 50 years of your life in, enjoying your life rather than spending your savings, lifetime saving in healthcare. So that's one thing. The guys between 40 and 50, the employees between 40 and 50, I want them, if they have disease, to come down and to reverse the disease preferably by eating well, by following certain principles of exercise, by taking time out and relaxing the mind and, kind of looking after the health. And we do a lot of programs for them. The last group is an entry group. The entry group is somebody between 20 and 20, 22 and 35 or 40. Those people, if somebody at 35 comes to me with hypertension, I literally light up. I kind of get, मेरे को बहुत गुस्सा आता है. If you're 35, आपको 35 होके आपको hypertension है, तो आपके खाने का problem है, सोने का problem है, काम के वजह से नहीं है. Or that's the way I talk. I want them without any disease so that they can perform well and their productivity for the company and for their life goes up. जो काम 8 घंटे में हो सकता है, sitting in the office, आप ऑफिस में बैठ के 12 घंटे का काम नहीं होता है. It just does not happen. All you're doing is you're not being productive enough. Okay. So I also get this comment about अगर मेरे को diabetes है, सर मेरे पिताजी को था और मेरा मम्मी को था और मेरे grandfather both sides had diabetes or hypertension, whatever disease, heart attack से मर गए. नहीं सर, ये आपका प्रॉब्लम है खाने के वजह से, lack of exercise के वजह से, ये आपका genetics. You can change even if you have a DNA. Your father ate the same food, your grandfather ate the same food. That food may not work for you. So let us try and change your food. How do you change that food is do the DNA test. So that's one way of doing it. I want to talk about cardiac arrest. Again, heart attacks. Under 40, okay, a person's heart does not have collateral circulation. It's a straight highway. Okay, there's no bypasses. There's no roads that go off. It's a one straight highway, like we used to have the old Pune, the Bombay-Pune expressway. There's one segment where you cannot get off, you cannot go off, and you cannot come on. Okay, so your heart is like that. If any artery gets blocked, you're dead. You're going to die. Okay, so that's why people die below 40 of heart attacks. The guys between 40, guys and women, patients between 40 and 50, they have some amount of collateral circulation, so they can survive enough to get to a hospital. Okay, the guys below 40 will die straight away on the spot. The guys between 40 and 50 have enough of collateral circulation that they can survive for an hour, get to a hospital, get treatment. And a guy above 50, especially people above 60, you have a lot of collateral circulation. You have a lot of supply that can feed that muscle, heart muscle, distal or जो block से दूर है. So that's one thing. Okay, so these are things that if we don't educate the individual or the patient, how would they know? So I've tried to do this with companies, with employees, by webinars, by talks and all that, and try to even on one-on-one thing. We can do the same thing here with our own team, with the Velocity family, and then start talking about it as we go forward. Melvin?
Just out of curiosity for the participants here, how many patients have you treated for COVID?
I've treated, as of today, in excess of 10,000 patients, actual COVID patients. Even though my webinars will talk about, interviews will talk about 6,000 and 7,500, the real number is in excess of 10,000 patients, okay? I've treated along with that at least 4 or 5 members per family. So that you add another 40, 50,000 people who are family members. Because I assume if there's one patient in the home with COVID, everybody else has got infected. They just are not at 100% where they show symptoms or come positive. So I treat everybody in the family. The third set is also I've treated about 15,000 people on prophylaxis, and that prophylaxis is going up now. But I designed a new prophylaxis for vaccination, where if you're going in for the vaccine, since I saw so many problems going on, and I run vaccine camps, we usually don't have a problem, but when we have a problem, it's a pretty bad problem. So I've just openly said, you're going to take this medicine, this is how you're going to do it, and kind of brought up a prophylaxis program. I've been running prophylaxis program for companies since September of last year. I've been offering prophylaxis program for individuals since May or June of last year, especially the high-risk individuals, diabetics, kidney failure patients who normally would die if they get COVID. So these sort of people, I've kind of been offering prophylaxis programs besides treating acute COVID. I've had some really good results, particularly in the time when Delhi did not have any beds, Chennai did not have any beds, Bangalore did not have any hospital beds. That was a time which was an opportunity for me to show what I can do. And I brought people with a 23 by 25, 94, 95% lung block, lung clotting back to normal in 1 month. But more importantly, they went from 23 by 25 to 16 by 25 within the day. 8 baje, 23 by 25 और 5 बजे शाम को 16 by 25 वो औरत को मैंने घर भेज दिया, बोला घर जाओ मैं आपको ट्रीटमेंट घर पे देता हूँ. And that's how we worked it out. So I've done a lot of crazy things, what other doctors will consider crazy. Why are you taking such a risk? I've been asked. At the end of the day, I want my patient alive and well. I get asked many questions many times about why are you taking such risks? Send them to hospital, let them go. The answer is no. You have to do what's right for the patient. That's what we're trying to do with the DNA test. That's what we try to do in day-to-day life. I try to practice real medicine. Melvin?
Thank you, Doctor. Stan sir, any parting comments, anything that you feel that I have not covered?
I really am thankful and very happy for with Dr. Darryl for sharing such a valuable information. Many a times people in India have this mindset, जैसे अभी कोई भी गाड़ी लेने जाते हैं तो कौन सी भी लग्जरी गाड़ी ले लें, उसका तो वो एक्सपेंसिव तो पहले लगती नहीं है, क्योंकि वो ठीक है, वो तो स्टेटस है, लाइफस्टाइल है, जो भी है, तो वहां पे तो कोई एक्सपेंसिव गाड़ी है नहीं बोलते हैं, क्योंकि ज्यादा एक्सपेंसिव गाड़ी लेना ही एक अचीवमेंट है. बट एक सवाल तो वो जरूर पूछते हैं कि भाई माइलेज कितनी देती है. हमारा माइंडसेट ऐसा है कि भाई हम लोग मर्सिडीज जगुआर भी ले लेंगे तो एक बार शायद पूछते नहीं, लेकिन मन में ख्याल तो आता रहेगा. तो सेम वे पीपल might also ask, saying that what kind of cost that we need to shell out, and commercially is it advisable and all that. But Dr. Darryl has been advocating putting the commercials aside and looking at a patient care. Okay, so the question about commercial does not really come, and suggesting and recommending the right solution is really good. So if we have so many other doctors who also would endorse, because mindset India में, I wanted to relate this to this question, that जैसे हम लोग पूछते हैं कि माइलेज कितनी देती है, anything to do with the health and wellness, people always would ask, saying that मैं मेरे डॉक्टर से पूछता हूँ या डॉक्टर ने recommend किया है क्या. And now, of course, the people who are the patients of Dr. Darryl, they would say that yes, हमारे डॉक्टर ने ही recommend किया है. So, and of course, उसके बाद में there are two aspects, as I said. One, of course, is a clinical aspect. The other one is a dietary aspect and lifestyle, changes that we need to be doing. So, people who are not qualified should not be really talking about clinical and medical, because you're not qualified to do this. I wouldn't talk anything about the medicine and the other procedures that they would do, because that's not my domain. सेम वे जो भी जितने भी लोग genomic wellness consultants हैं या entrepreneurs हैं, they need to restrict by not giving half knowledge or even wrong knowledge which is not your expertise. लेकिन हाँ, आप ये डेफिनेटली कर सकते हैं कि डाइटरी या लाइफस्टाइल के बारे में आप बात कर सकते हैं. ऑफकोर्स उसके लिए भी आपको एक्सपर्ट बनना पड़ता है. एंड एट द एंड बिफोर आई वुड वी वुड एंड दिस वेबिनार, I wanted to draw your attention to what Velocity Genetics does. Velocity Genetics, apart from doing DNA testing, हमारा strength और identity रहा है in terms of creating a lot of awareness through a lot of training programs. हम लोग अलग-अलग type के training programs करते हैं. Yesterday you listened to Dr. Amol Raut from Pune, coming traveling all the way from Pune to Mumbai and addressing around 7,500 people about genetics. So we also have a lot of different programs. So if you could actually go to our website called mywignet.com, and Wignet stands for Velocity Institute of Genomic Nutrition and Entrepreneurship Training. मतलब आप जेनेटिक्स के बारे में, न्यूट्रिशन के बारे में सीख सकते हैं एक बुनियादी तौर पे, ताकि आपको बहुत सारे टर्म्स, बहुत सारे जो जार्गन आपको लगती है कि भाई हमको समझ में नहीं आता है, उसको थोड़ा और गहराई से समझ सकते हैं, ताकि आप इसके बारे में बात कर सकते हैं. और ये बात करके इसका एक एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप भी आप कर सकते हैं. एंड बीइंग एन एंटरप्रेन्योर इज समथिंग दैट्स रिक्वायर्ड. यू डोंट गो टू अ हॉस्पिटल एंड थिंक दैट दे आर कोई ऐसा धर्मशाला नहीं है. इट्स अ कमर्शियली रन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. एंड टुडे समटाइम पीपल आर क्रिटिसाइजिंग फॉर द हेवी bills that they are charging for the patients. So ये हमारा एक institute है, and this is an institute with a difference because this is the only institute in India which gives you a comprehensive course on nutrigenomics. तो अगर आप में से कोई लोग nutrigenomics के बारे में, genetics के बारे में समझना चाहते हैं, we are offering this course called 2-month online and interactive certification course in nutrigenomics. तो हम लोगों ने अब तक 4 बैचेस में आई थिंक ओवर 120 पीपल हम लोगों ने ट्रेन किए हैं. दिस इज अ 2 months कोर्स एंड दिस इज स्टार्टिंग in the month in September, and this is for a 2 months duration. So if you really want to know a little more about the course, let me play this one video which will tell you as to what is this course for. I would encourage each one of you to enroll. आपके पास कल का एक दिन है because the first online class starts on Wednesday from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. ऐसे 8 online classes रहेंगे जहां पर आप अपने questions को पूछ सकते हैं. And as in the video that you saw, that we are talking about genetics, we are talking about nutrition. क्योंकि कई बार हम लोगों ने ऐसा सुना है कि प्रोटीन, कैल्शियम, विटामिन्स, मिनरल्स, एंजाइम्स, कार्बोहाइड्रेट सुना तो है, लेकिन ये क्या होते हैं, तो उनकी एक बेसिक नॉलेज देना डेफिनेटली जरूरी है. And we need to also study a little about nutrigenomics, because nutrigenomics is a marriage between genetics and nutrition, and of course epigenetics. उसके बारे में हम लोगों ने आज ज़्यादा नहीं बात किया, but epigenetics is like anything which is environmental related, which is impacting your genes, to be in a very simple language. इसके बारे में 48 chapters, and there are 2 other chapters, so total of 50 chapters. And इसका online classes, and then you can study it online. Internationally, this course, whoever is providing it are charging nothing less than 50,000-60,000 rupees. We are doing it at a very nominal cost just to cover the cost. So I would highly encourage कि अगर आपको इसमें interest है and आपको interest लेना भी चाहिए, तो please get back to the person who has invited you for this webinar. वो आपको link भेजेंगे, तो प्लीज एनरोल. एंड ऑनलाइन क्लासेस अगर आप मिस भी करते हैं फ्रॉम एवरी फ्राइडे फ्रॉम 11 to 1, उसका YouTube में हम लोग रिकॉर्डिंग भी आपको भेजते हैं, तो ताकि आप अपने आप में स्टडी कर सकते हैं. एंड ड्यूरिंग द वीक जो आपने क्लास मिस भी किया है उसको देख के आप उसको कैच अप कर सकते हैं. देयर आर 50 चैप्टर्स एंड वी विल हैव अ वेरी वंडरफुल कॉन्वोकेशन सेरेमनी, जहां पे आपका रैंक डिसाइड होता है बेस्ड ऑन कि आपने चैप्टर को किस तरीके से पढ़ा है और किस तरीके से उसको आंसर किया है. बिकॉज देयर आर सम मल्टीपल चॉइस क्वेश्चंस आल्सो दैट यू नीड टू आंसर, विद व्हिच विल ट्रैक योर प्रोग्रेस. यू कैन नॉट fake by saying that कि नहीं मैंने study किया है. We track it by your progress that you do. So this is what we have. So we got 1 day left tomorrow, and day after is the class. So please register for the course tomorrow. It's a batch of only 20 people, and we already have almost close to 20 people registered in this batch. So जो लोगों ने registration नहीं किया, I think we're left with around 3 or 4 seats. So you can please do it, and then it will be going to be a very useful course. So that's what I want to share it with you. That develop your muscles and in understanding genetics, so that it's personally beneficial to you, beneficial to entire family members, and also as a wellness entrepreneur, so you can spread and then make a business out of it. So thank you, Melvin.
Thank you, Dr. Darrell.
Thank you, Melvin.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Stan, sir.
Stan.
I think it's been a wonderful, very informative session, and I think it should benefit a lot of people who have participated. We have run short of time, so we'll not have any questions. But if you have any questions, do get back to the person who invited you, and we'll be very happy to share more information with you. Right? So thank you. Yes,
Melvin, if I could just interrupt before you log out, every one of you, if you could leave your acknowledgement and a word of appreciation for Dr. Darrell, I'll be really glad and happy. He's doing an amazing work, wonderful work, and I'm sure we look forward to have many more webinars like this in the future, so that he will be able to guide us as a medical doctor and help all of us, help a lot of other people who can experience good health. So please leave your comment. I will probably share that with Dr. Darrell. Over to you, Melvin.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank
so
you,
do
Melvin.
share your comments. Get back to the person who invited you for any question that you have. We'll be very happy to help you in getting more information. Right. So thank you very much. Good night, everybody. Thank you for being
Thank
such a
you.
wonderful audience. Have a wonderful dinner. Sleep well. Take good care of yourselves. Be healthy. Be safe. Be happy. Thank you. Good
Yeah,
night.
eat well and eat less.
Eat less food. ELF.
Yeah. Goodbye and good night.
Good night.
Okay, good night. Take care.